We're nearing the end of this thing, and we're into the United section of countries. Question is, will tonight's dish fall apart? And welcome back to Cliffieland. This is weekend country number 183 on our second attempt of cooking the food of every single country in the world. Tonight, we're up to the nation of the United Arab Emirates. And the UAE is located on the Arabian Peninsula in the Middle East, on the Persian Gulf, and shares land borders with Saudi Arabia and Oman, and maritime borders with Qatar, as well as Iran across the Persian Gulf. Its food is a delicious combination of delightfully spicy items. Usually you'll find dishes there involving beef, camel, or fish, and a lot of really great spices, including a particular spice mix which will come into play in tonight's dish called BZAR SPICE mix. Now, of course, United Arab Emirates is home to the megalopolises of Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and there, of course, you can find food from just about anywhere in the world, but we're focusing here on traditional Emirati dishes, and for that we had to look at this a little more deeply, and we had to deal with this last time, so let's see how things went when we did this whole thing before. Well, 5 years ago on the Global Cooking Challenge, I got to cook and stream across 2 nights, and the first issue I had was one that I had for a number of Middle Eastern countries, is the fact that I developed amnesia, not once but twice before. If you are playing along with the home game, you'll know that way back when I cooked Bahrain, I cooked a delicious dish called makbous, and that is a very popular dish across this entire region. What I did on the first time around, though, is I got amnesia and did it again for Kuwait, and got amnesia again and did it for Oman, so I was determined not to make that mistake again this time. So what I wound up doing was, one night I made a delightful spiced lamb dish that I served with boiled chickpeas, and a pita, which I made from scratch, all of which came out quite nicely, but not quite as well as what we did on the second night, and that's what we're doing here tonight. And that was a combination of 2 dishes, one being a spiced rice dish, and the other a fried fish, with a particular spice mix, as I mentioned before, called BZAR. Now, a note about that. You may be able to find this spice mix in the Middle Eastern market or online somewhere, or if you happen to be somewhere where it's available easily, good for you. Unfortunately, I'm not, so that was going to present a problem. I last used this BZAR spice mix when I cooked the food of Libya, and they came out really nicely. However, that spice mix was ancient. I needed to create it from scratch. What that means is, in the ingredients and our cooking here, you're going to see that I wound up preparing my own. And not only is that an operation in and of itself, but that also involves a secondary spice mix which is included in it, which is called an Arabic 5 spice mix. If you don't have any of those things, you can make them from scratch and have some to give to your friends and neighbors if you'd like. But now we need to see what go into tonight's 2 dishes. First, for our fried fish, we'll need 1.2 pounds, or in this case 2 pounds, of sea bream. Of course, we weren't able to find that, so we're using mahi-mahi here. Half a cup of fresh lemon juice, 3 cloves of garlic crushed, and 1 teaspoon of BZAR spice mix to coat. We are going to be making that, and you'll see the ingredients for that next. Also, salt to taste. And if you want to make the BZAR spice mix yourself, you'll need 1 tablespoon of turmeric, 1 tablespoon of caraway powder, or in this case caraway seeds, 2 teaspoons of coriander powder, and 1 teaspoon of Arabic 7 spice. If you can't find the 7 spice, here's what you'll need to make that. And for the Arabic 7 spice, you'll need 2 tablespoons of ground black pepper, 2 tablespoons of paprika, 2 tablespoons of ground cumin, 1 tablespoon of ground coriander, we'll grind ours, 1 tablespoon of ground cloves, 1 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and half a teaspoon of ground cardamom. And finally, for our Emirati rice, we'll need 2 cups of basmati rice, 5 cups of water, 3 cardamom seeds, or in this case, the seeds of 3 cardamom pods, 1.5 tablespoons of clarified butter, also known as ghee, plus another 2 tablespoons for frying the onions, 1/4 teaspoon of saffron, which we will be roasting in an aluminum foil packet, half of an onion sliced, and 1/4 cup of molasses. That looks like it's gonna be really delicious. We need to get cooking. Into a saucepan, place all the spices. Roast for 1 minute or until fragrant, making sure they don't burn. Grind and store in an airtight container or in the freezer. Into a spice grinder, place all the spices, grind them, and store in an airtight container or in the freezer. Rinse and pat dry the fish. Make 3 slits on each side of the fish. Sprinkle on sea salt and the BZAR spice mix. Cover the fish with lemon juice and garlic and let the fish marinate for at least 2 hours. Then when you're ready, heat the saucepan with enough sunflower oil to cover 1 centimeter of the pan. Fry on both sides until cooked. The time will depend on the heat and the type of fish. Soak the rice in cold water for 15 minutes and drain. Boil your water and dissolve the syrup, that would be date syrup or molasses, and add the cardamom seeds, ghee, and saffron, and add the drained rice to the boiling water, and simmer until the rice is cooked, about 15 to 20 minutes. You actually should do this uncovered. Drain the rice and place in an oven on low heat for 15 minutes. Then heat 2 tablespoons of oil or ghee in a saucepan over medium heat. Add the onion slices. Fry until brown and crispy, about 15 minutes. Then to plate, garnish the rice with the crispy onion and top with the fish. How did that turn out? Well, it was okay. It was kind of a mixed bag, and mostly because of this guy over here. And we need to talk about what I did with that rice dish. Don't ask me why, I don't know, but I wound up cooking it with the lid on the stove, probably because I thought it would evaporate too quickly and burn, and that wound up meaning that I had the cardinal sin of wet rice, which is not really good. Yes, I did put it in the oven for the 45 minutes or whatever that it needed to be, and it was supposed to boil down in that time or evaporate, and it didn't really completely, and that's my fault, and I shouldn't have done that, so it suffered because of that. Aside from that though, it did need some more salt and maybe some acid in it to balance out the flavors, because that molasses was really strong and sweet, and that was a little bit, you know, unbalanced. So while it was good, it wasn't great, so I'm gonna give that one 3 out of 5 globes. If I had done it properly, it probably would have been 4, maybe even a 5. In any case, the fish. The fish was really delicious. That marinade was really great. The spice mix was just fantastic. Loved it a lot. And yeah, I know I did not have a whole sea berm fish, but this was a decent substitute, and it was really delicious, and I'm glad I had leftovers. And I have spice mix to give to some friends too, so yay! So I'm gonna give the fried fish 4 out of 5 globes. Yum, yum, yum. And that does it for our stint here in the Middle East. We head to our second united country next week when we have another one of these how are you gonna do that countries, at least how you could do that in one night countries, with the food of the United Kingdom. See you then. These are not my original recipes. Links to the original recipes and their authors can be found in the About section. If you have any thoughtful feelings or helpful suggestions about what I'm doing, feel free to sound off in the comments here. If you like what you see, like, subscribe, hit that bell to be notified when these videos are posted, and of course you can always follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Thanks for coming by. See you next time. Happy eating.